Are you ready for rapid fire?
Yes, I am ready for rapid fire. And you know what? Today I came with my own question. I was tired of
Ooh,
you
okay.
kicking all the questions off. It's my
Okay.
turn to lead the charge this week. So, question I saw based on what I saw the other day, I saw the tweet from Dara Mabrey, and I saw that she tore her ACL, and she's more than likely. I mean, not more than likely, she is done for the year. So my question for you is: how does Dara Mabrey's career-ending knee injury impacted the women's team going forward? And then I had another question I
Gotta
kind of
remind
wanted
you
to.
it's Dara. Gotta remind you it's Dara first of all. Don't,
Sorry.
like
How does Dara Mabrey's career-ending knee injury impact the Irish women going forward? And another thing I
Okay.
wanted to add on to it: does this adding the midseason early enrollee seem much bigger now that an injury like this occurred?
Well, I do because she's obviously going to be gone now. And so that in terms of the guards, like Neil Ivy was able to run out a lot of different looks and a lot of different lineups, mixing and matching and stuff like that. I would lean toward the freshman KK Bransford is probably going to be in the starting lineup now. Now a little bit more athletic, not near the 3-point shooter that Dara is. Like Dara had 33 threes, I believe it was this season. Bransford is 1 for 7, so you're not going to get that. But she's quick and athletic. She'll show up at the defensive end of the floor, and like Sonia Citron, who's one of Dara's best friends, actually on the team as well. She made 18 3-pointers in the first 17 games of the season. She made 6 the other night and actually hit her first 6 after Mabrey's injury. So I think that she is fully capable of being able to step up and start shooting with some more volume, like and just like more, see her starting to take more shots. And so like the one thing I wonder, like when you add a Bransford who is not going to be a 3-point shooter with Dara Mabrey, just her threat of the 3-point shot provided more spacing. The way you had to play defenders, like, they can play off KK Bransford a little bit more, like they couldn't play off Dara Mabrey. So that's going to change some things, I think. But again, like if Citron can emerge into being a more volume 3-point shooter, I think that helps a lot. And you brought up Cassandre Prosper, and she's probably going to have to accelerate her development right now because the only other guards besides the two I just mentioned are the backup point guard Jenna Brown and of course the point guard Olivia Miles. So the guard rotation is a lot shorter now, and Prosper is a guard, but she's also 6'2", and she can shoot the three a little bit. I think the big thing for her, where she can really show up is at the defensive end of the floor. You're just going to get so much more length out there with a 6'2" frame, and her wingspan is just nuts. So I think that Cass Prosper's development is going to have to accelerate now, and we'll see what that looks like because you can still see her kind of feeling her way through some things out there when she's out on the floor. But I think they're gonna have to see more of her now. And again, especially from a defensive aspect, that can be a really good thing. All right, so let me throw you some questions. Last night we did offense. Tonight we're going to look at the Notre Dame defense with the idea of buy low and sell high. Which Notre Dame defensive player would you buy stock in right now if you wanted that stock to make you the biggest profit a year from now?
So you're telling me like what's a pin what's a penny stock right now, and what could potentially land you on that Fortune 500 next season? The way
Sure.
I look at this is like the easy answer to me is someone like Prince Collie, right? Because it's like but to me, he's not a penny stock. He's not a guy who's like everyone knows
Right.
about
Like,
him.
where is his stock right now? Yeah.
Yeah.
Like how relative? Like, yeah, I get what you're saying.
So to me, this came down to two guys, and ultimately, I think both of them are going to end up playing the same position, even though they don't play the same position right now. One is going to be Jordan Botelho. I think that he is kind of low stock potential for big boom, high reward going into next season. And another guy who, again, I don't think he's going to be playing maybe the same position anymore, but I'm going to butcher the last name, Junior.
Uyalamaka.
I
I'll
think
help
that
you.
I think that he's a guy that potentially shifts down to Viper just because of his, and I'm not calling him fat or slow, but he's a little bigger. And I think that Viper could help him be. You don't need to be blazing fast to play Viper. And so
Right.
I think he has a lot of athleticism and side to side agility that would be very beneficial at the Viper position. So those are going to be my two guys who, low kind of. And again, I know Junior is a high recruit and, those sort of things and got some time this year as a freshman. But I think that the Viper position is going to be that big position next season. And I think that's where you're going to find who's going to be that guy that's kind of under everyone's radar right now and going to pop next season. And those are my two guys, Jordan Botelho and Junior.
Yeah, I mean that's one of the biggest questions because you've got to replace two guys on that side, both Foskey, your starter, and your number 2 guy, Adam Alola. So you've got to have someone step up there. And Jordan Botelho was one of the first people I was thinking about as well. And I saw Xavier Watts brought up, and again, like relative, like where is his stock right now? Again, like if you're going to go 1 to 10. Like, where is Xavier Watts stock? Because it already took a little bit of a bump because we started to see him play a little bit more at the end of the season. So I would still put him in that mix, though. I think he's a good one because he wasn't he wasn't in the starting lineup. It took him the season to develop to get where he is. I think that there's still a ton of upside with him. So I like him as well. And this is the other one that I like a lot that Tommy pointed out, and that's Jaylen Sneed. And now jumping too high, on Sneed already. I know everybody loves Sneed. So, so again, like you could make the argument, is his stock low enough, like you said, in that penny range to where you're going to get full value when it's all said and done, if he comes close to reaching his potential. But if he's able to get over there at Rover and then you're playing, a couple of those other guys inside more, and Jaylen Sneed is able to, to give you some, like nickel is a potential question, even though you have the Oklahoma State guy coming in, like that's a potential spot for him. We think it's a fairly natural spot for him, but Botelho would be my 1. Jaylen Sneed would be my number 2. And I do like Xavier Watts. He would be my 3rd one as well. So I think that this spring is going to be really big for Jaylen Sneed, just in terms of development and seeing how much more he can sort of absorb, because there's no doubt that he's got talent. How quickly can he put it together and be a guy who can go out, that they can count on and be, go out there and produce on Saturdays next fall. Interesting question here. Notre Dame football is recruiting a guy named Daniel Freitag. He's a wide receiver who also wants to play basketball in college. Now, it's not like it's not necessarily a deal breaker for him, I guess, if he can't play basketball, but he's interested in playing both football and basketball if he can. So what are your thoughts on letting a player play both of those sports potentially in college if you're recruiting him?
I don't know the last time I've seen a football and basketball combination. You predominantly kind of see, especially, at Notre Dame, the football and baseball track, Jeff Samardzija, Golden Tate. What was the guy that played outfield for Notre Dame and also wide receiver? He was a junior.
Torrey Hunter
Jr. Exactly. That's who I was thinking of. It's a lot easier when you can do it because those seasons, one's in the fall and one's in the spring. What would make it hard about basketball is, basically when the school semester starts, even though basketball isn't, maybe having full organized practices, they're still doing, team shoot around scrimmages, whatever it might be. And then you start
basketball, like they start practicing in October and the season starts in November when the football season's
and that's
going.
obviously in the heart of the football season. And so how do you balance those things and get good quality time on both ends. And it's even harder for me because I didn't play basketball, right? Like that was never really an issue for me. I was not lucky enough, but I did it in a way where, I focused all my attention mainly to football in the fall. And then as soon as, that ended, it was baseball through the winter and then obviously into the spring. And so for me, I don't have an issue with it as long as, again, you're getting both quality, you're putting in quality time on both ends and it's not affecting either side of the coin. And I think the best example of this on seasons that potentially overlap is when Pat Connaughton did basketball and played baseball, because there obviously had to be some sort of conflict, and it obviously worked out for him because, the guy got drafted in both leagues. So I think if Pat Connaughton could get it done, I think it might be a little bit harder for football, basketball, but I definitely think it could still get done.
I think football, basketball in college has got to be the toughest because even like with Connaughton, like you're talking about, basketball ends sometime in March, unless you go to the national championship game, that it's early April. But, so that's like the first month and a half of your baseball season. But he could, like Connaughton, because he was a pitcher and not a hitter, he could still get over, throw a bullpen session once or twice a week, even though he wasn't with the team. And like, I remember the NCAA tournament ended one year and he bolted straight back to town. And I think he went downtown to what was then Kovaleski, now Four Winds Field, to pitch, for Notre Dame in a night game. So I think it's a little bit, you're going to miss some. With basketball, what makes it so tough is, again, like, you're going to miss, especially if you end up in a bowl game or if you're in the college football playoff, you're going to miss a good 2 months of the season. And what about your off-season work as well, where like the football players are doing conditioning during the summer and it's all team conditioning and stuff like that? And well, the basketball team is doing stuff as well. So there's definitely got to be an openness and a willingness by both head coaches. And a lot of times coaches will say, yeah, sure, we'll let you do it. But then once push starts coming to shove, I think guys start getting a little bit more territorial. But it's been done before, like Charlie Ward at Florida State. I realize this was before your time, but Charlie won a Heisman Trophy on the football field, and then he went to play in the NBA with the New York Knicks after that. Like Tony Gonzalez did both at Cal, and Julius Peppers did both at North Carolina. And those are like the higher profile type guys, but it has been done before. So it's not like it's never been done. It's about the willingness, I think, of the coaches and how much they think he can contribute, because, again, it's going to start not only cutting into your regular season, but it'll cut into your off seasons as well. When you're talking about developing and getting ready for the next season and that kind of thing. So I think it's really interesting. I don't remember, another guy popping up like this that was baseball, football. Like you said, there have been other two-sport guys, but it seems like most of them show up in baseball. There's a lacrosse guy though as well. So it seems like Marcus Freeman is potentially open to it. So I'll be really curious to see where this goes with Freitag.
Yeah, I think it ultimately just boils down to what you were talking about, the willingness of the coaches to be able to work, with each other. And honestly, too, what impact the player has, because if he's a stud on both teams, obviously both teams are going to want him, and you're going to be maybe more okay with them missing time here and there because of, the impact that that they can make once they're, a full-time kind of participant.
Yeah. Seeing like Chi-Town said the Four Horsemen played basketball too, but I realized that under Rockney, who coached almost every sport at Notre Dame at one time. Yeah. And like 100 years ago, it's around 100 years ago at this point, things were a little bit, like the seasons, like the college football season even was shorter and the off-season workouts were shorter and all that kind of stuff. So, times were simpler. I don't think it was as hard to make these in. And the fact that you did have Rockney coaching other sports, I think definitely helped as well. It was almost like high school now, where it's like, come out for the baseball team, even though you haven't played baseball in 5 years. It's, it's almost like they're begging guys to come out for sports back then. So, all right. So Tony Romo has received a lot of criticism recently. He was beaten up on Twitter this weekend for his call of the Bills-Bengals game. Some of the notable tweets, he said, that looks like it might have been moving forward, but it also looks like a fumble. I don't know. people calling him out for that, people calling him out for calling the play clock a shot clock. Some people said he should just be muted. And, of course, Jess Romo made his name by predicting plays when he started off as an analyst, but CBS made him tone it down. So I guess my question is he as good now as when he started? What's it been, like 5 or 6 years ago now at this point?
Yeah, it has been 5 or 6 years ago. Listen, I never have an issue listening to a Tony Romo game, and it's not because of what everyone's probably going to say. Oh, he was a Dallas Cowboy, or any of those sort of things. And I enjoyed Romo, but I just think he's a pure analyst. I think he knows the game. I think he gets excited about the game. I think he teaches you the game in a way that doesn't make you feel kind of like he's demeaning you or talking down to you, or just. But I do think at times there are instances where he's just kind of flaunting. Yes, he does know probably a little bit more than what he should talk about in certain situations and stuff like that. But I think that Tony Romo is just as good now as he was when he first started as a TV analyst. I don't think that he's dropped off it by any means. And again, if Tony Romo's doing a game, I am never upset. I'm always looking forward to it. I can't say the same about Greg Olsen, but we'll just have to agree to disagree.
Jesse hates Greg Olsen because he thinks Greg Olsen hates his Cowboys. And I'll just say,
someone agreed with me in the chat when I brought it up, so I know I went. They're not even a Cowboys fan, so I know.
All right,
this was last week. You're not going to find it today, but there are times where I thought he did a great job in that 49ers game. I will say that. I thought that was his best Cowboys game of the year.
All right. I'll just say the Romo stuff. I saw a lot of this. I got to see about half the game because I, did the women's game, the women's basketball game, and then came home, kind of got some dinner ready and, settled in to, to watch the Cowboys-Niners game that night. And, so I had it on, but then NFL Network replayed it yesterday. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll see what everyone's talking about. And it's like, okay, he called the play clock the shot clock. It's like the guy watches other sports.
I feel like the errors he was making is just like you're just talking to try to kind of fill a void rather than.
And like I've heard people say, well, he's not as prepared as he used to be. And it's like, see, he's been out of the game for a few years, so he doesn't know as much as he knew because he's already been out of the game. It's like, and they were talking about him being unprepared and not putting in the work. And like,
I've never seen that.
I don't know how many times I heard him, reference, like where he's talking about different personnel that the two teams, the Bills and the Bengals were using. And he would recall conversations that he had just had, with the assistant coaches or studying film and all this kind of stuff. I think it's just like everything else. Romo is not new anymore. So he is not the shiny new toy. So he is just like everybody else. So now it's like you start picking him apart and, everything else. I think Romo is just fine. He does still kind of have to figure himself out a little bit more. Like the dynamic in that booth with Nance is a little bit different. Personally, I loved it when he predicted the plays, and I think he can still predict the plays. And it's like, especially in these playoff games, it's like, oh, watch up here. This is going to happen. I think that kind of stuff is great. Maybe it prepares, maybe it annoys some people, but I had no problem with it. I think it's one of his assets, and I think that they should let him do it more. They shouldn't be stifling him on that.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we've come to the portion of the show where some people are waiting for. Brent, how about them Cowboys? and of course he wants to know if the 49ers defense will shut down Philly's offense. And Salty was saying earlier that we were just stalling by not getting to the point. So let me ask you this. Let me, I'm going to save this other one. Yeah, I'm going to save this other one. Let's just get in with this. Ross Tucker says,
I was hoping for the easy one first. The biggest.
You want to go with the other one? You want to go with the other one?
It's the biggest bright spot of the Cowboys team.
Okay, fill in the blank. Micah Parsons throwing Mike McGlinchey to the ground like a rag doll during Sunday's playoff game was blank.
It was textbook. It was exciting. It was just everything that you want to see out of football. And not only did he hip check, McGlinchey and just toss a 315-pound man like it was, breakfast, he he made freaking Kittle whiff before that, and then he tosses McGlinchey. He gets past 2 defenders in a span of like 2.5 seconds. It felt like it. Not only does he just chuck McGlinchey, but he just absolutely destroys Kittle, also an All-Pro, lineman type guy, and just gets to Brock Purdy after what seemed to be instantaneously. So I loved it. Micah Parsons is my favorite player. I could watch his film almost 24/7. Like that's probably
Brian
my
Baldinger
favorite
loves
thing.
him. I'll tell you that. Baldy loves him.
That's what I was gonna say. And he says it every because I look forward to Baldinger's videos on Monday just because I know there's gonna be a Micah Parsons one. And I just don't. There's no one in the league like Micah Parsons. I know there's guys that have more sacks than him, but the skill set that Micah Parsons has and the way he disrupt plays without getting sacks, I don't think that there's anyone better in the business right now. And it's as a guy who played defense and someone who enjoys watching defense, it is so fun being able to watch him.
I realize, like I don't watch current pro wrestling, so I don't know like any of the names of these current guys. I couldn't tell you who's big, who's small, and all this, but like Parsons throwing Mike McGlinchey like he did, literally, like Mike McGlinchey was parallel to the ground. It's because Micah Parsons had him up, and again, he threw him like it would be like if one of the British Bulldogs body slammed Hulk Hogan back in the day. It's like you're talking about versus there's a big difference, and it was amazing. And I know, like, of course, everyone later on wanted to talk about how McGlinchey and Aaron Banks with the big inside double team on McCaffrey's touchdown and all that kind of stuff. But how you going to do when you've got to pass protect and you've got a man like that coming at you? That was I never would have thought that I would see Mike McGlinchey end up in that kind of situation.
It was just so smooth, like all one motion.
It was one motion.
Just
it was amazing.
I see Micah Parsons talking about wrestling all the time. He had to be a wrestler in his day. That's where he had to learn that move because he just chucked him like it was like literally it was in stride. It didn't look like he broke stride one bit.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The world famous Scotty Nitro says back in the day, Jerry Faust era, he believes Joe Howard played receiver for football, point guard for the basketball team. All right. Point to you, Scotty Nitro. Thanks for dropping that knowledge in there. All right. So now the big one.
We don't
see
have
where we go with this. Ross Tucker says he would fire Mike McCarthy and make defensive coordinator Dan Quinn the head coach rather than let Quinn leave to be a head coach somewhere else. So if the Cowboys are going to be fixed, what do you do to fix them? Is this the answer? Is it something else? Where does it need to go? I'll just go over here and smoke a cigarette while you vent for a while.
First and foremost, I just want to say I appreciated the game on Sunday. I thought it was the best game of Sunday. It didn't come down to how I wanted it to end, obviously. And Dak made a lot of mistakes that ultimately could have potentially won them the game if he hit some plays here and there. But, the Cowboys played a better team, a better roster, a better defense. A lot of quarterbacks have struggled against this San Francisco defense. There's a reason why they average, they only give up 15 points per game on this 11-game winning streak. It's hard. They have a great roster. And I'm not trying to take away from Dak because he made mistakes. I think that ultimately getting to the question now, Dan Quinn is the most important piece of this puzzle because I think the Cowboys covered a lot of their deficiencies this year by having a very good defense. And then towards the back half of the season, they lost both of their starting corners. They lost a defensive tackle. They lost a middle linebacker. They got some of those guys back, but they were still pretty banged up in the secondary. So for me, I think, and when you have Micah Parsons, I think Dan Quinn builds a defense that only allows Micah Parsons to excel and let him be the star of the defenses, which is how it should be because Micah Parsons is a top 5 defensive player in all of the NFL. So the most important piece to me is keeping Dan Quinn. I don't care if he's the head coach. I don't care if he's the defensive coordinator. He just needs to be on the staff and be compensated.
I mean,
fairly.
They found a way to keep him last year. They kept him from becoming a head coach last year. I don't know if you can do it 2 years in a row. I will say this. Being a good coordinator does not necessarily make you a good head coach.
Correct.
And, you can say that Dan Quinn was a good head coach in Atlanta because he had Matt Ryan before, in
Julio
Matt Ryan's prime, before it went backwards. Yeah, he had Julio Jones, but he also had the guy who's calling the shots now in San Francisco. And, that was a big part of it as well. And after he left, you saw a backstep every year until eventually he was fired as head coach. And even as a defensive-minded head coach, the Atlanta Falcons defense was not good his last couple of years, like really not good. So just keeping him around does not guarantee that the defense is going to be good. You need him as defensive coordinator. If you don't have him, you need somebody else. Personally, I would say this. I don't put it all on Dak. This was his worst year in terms of interceptions, but he also had a pretty good amount of touchdowns for missing 4 games during the season. I think it's time for to turn the page offensively. Kellen Moore was forced down Mike McCarthy's throat. He had to keep McCarthy. He was the only coach who was kept on from Jason Garrett's staff. I think it's time to turn the page. You don't have a Kyle Shanahan over there who has like a system. There are plays, but there is not a system. What do you hang your hat on? Doug Nussmeier, the quarterback's coach, his contract is up. Maybe that's part of the answer as well. I think that they need something different offensively if you're going to maximize Dak, because they're not going to get rid of Dak Prescott. You're going to keep him around. I think that is what they have to do. All right, Michael, bro. Leave if you don't want to hear the talk. We're at the end of rapid fire. No one's forcing you to stay here. So
I think that the biggest fix again is what you were talking about. It'd be nice to see maybe some new offensive personnel. And specifically, I thought that, the front office did Dak an injustice this season by not getting a solid wide receiver too. Micah Gallup was coming off of ACL surgery. And I don't think they had a legit wide receiver 2 all year. So that put a lot of pressure on Lamb and Dak. And then when you lose a guy like Pollard in the first half, who's your other offensive playmaker on offense, it's going to be tough. And so what can Kellen Moore do to scheme up plays that, potentially can get over the deficit of not having a solid wide receiver 2 and then now losing a guy like Pollard? So I felt that there were some injustices on that half of they need to get a legit wide receiver 2. They need to make Tony Pollard the premier back. They need to restructure Zeke's contract.
I don't care about all that stuff. And I get what you're saying. There are things that they need, but like Zeke Elliott, are you going to keep him around at over $10 million a year? He's, he says he's willing to maybe take a pay cut. There is enough that, do they need more? Yeah, they need more, but there is enough there. They have to figure out after year 7 how to maximize Dak Prescott, because he's making mistakes that a 7-year veteran should not be making for a team with Super Bowl aspirations. And that's why I say you've got to change the coaching. You've got to change something on the offensive side. You're not just going to wave a magic wand and make Dak Prescott better. So everyone can talk about, Dak Prescott's not the guy and, all this different stuff. You've got to figure out how to maximize him. And that's why I think it's time to turn the page. And
I think that's why adding another solid wide receiver around him would help, because then you're not asking him to be that guy. He's not a Patrick Mahomes or Joe Burrow or that type of quarterback. Dak's a solid quarterback, but he's not a top 5, top 4, top 2, quarterback that could potentially take over and win you that game. So putting more around him, I think, is definitely an option. And then, in terms of they're going to have a lot of free agents, and I think they need to pick and choose wisely which guys that they bring back, because there's certain guys that are impactful and there's certain guys that you could live to walk with, like Donovan Wilson.
Sign me up for T.Y. Hilton at a bargain price for another year. I would love that. Thank you, Derek, by the way, for the super chat for the response. And Brent, Cowboys actually shut down CMC and Debo.
That's what I mean. It was a great game.
Won the game. It was a great game. I was thinking it was a great game, but it's like once they got to about that 7-minute mark and you start doing the math, you're a math guy. You had to know how that was going to play out.
I was talking to my girlfriend about this last night, and I know she doesn't ultimately care, but I was just kind of venting a little bit. I could tell in Dak's eyes on the sideline that he just wasn't there. He was flustered. And I've seen the look in his eyes before where he wants it and he knows that he's going to go get it and he's going to lead his team. I just didn't see that look in his eyes, and I was afraid, but I was just like, you know what? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe, things are going to turn a different way, but he just never looked like he had that fire, in his eyes. I never felt like he had that drive to take it over. Like I've seen him in the past where he's in the huddle, getting on everyone, giving everyone fist pumps all around the, like, I don't know. I just didn't see it in his eyes. They flustered him all night. And you could tell there's different schemes that they were running, on defense. They were disguising, they were confusing him. Someone brought up that T.Y. Hilton touchdown, and it's like, yeah, it's easy to say now, but on film when a guy breaks open, but they baited him into the throw. That's where they wanted him to throw that ball.
Well, Michael says if you're saying that now there's way more talent, but he's not hitting open playmakers, I don't think that that's what anyone said. I'm not saying there's way more talent. They obviously got rid of Amari Cooper last offseason because of money. But like I sent, like Dan Orlovsky was doing a breakdown yesterday, and there was like Dak loves that deep middle, or, not just deep middle, but middle of the field. That's where he's had most of his problems. And like there was a specific play where, he takes the deep shot to CD Lamb down the middle of the field. If he would have just looked to his left, he would have had probably a touchdown, if not at least a 35, 40-yard gain to a wide open T.Y. Hilton, who had great position, but he just never looked in that direction. And that's, kind of like with Drew Pine this year. It's like there's more to the field than just that one guy. You've got to see the whole field and actually go through your progressions. And hey, thanks, Michael. I'm a big Drew Pearson fan too myself. But yeah, so again, it's like it's not all on Dak Prescott, but I think that the way the team is constructed, they're never going to go out in a big free agent frenzy. Like I would love if they drafted Michael Mayer. Like that would fix a lot of things, I think, next year, because they're not going to pay Dalton Schultz, I don't think, to stick around. So I would love Michael Mayer to end up down there. That would be perfect. And Jules was asking about a slot receiver. Their system, again, like the current system they're in, they don't use the slot receiver enough. Like they had Cole Beasley, and he was, Cole Beasley went to Buffalo and became much more of a factor in that Buffalo offense than he was when he was in Dallas. So, Craig, my weekend was made seeing Buffalo lose another year. No Super Bowl. Go Dolphins, still undefeated. And again, we were talking about this at the start of the show. The real story coming out of this weekend is the Buffalo Bills for the last couple of years have been a preseason Super Bowl favorite, and Josh Allen has not gotten out of this divisional round of the playoffs the last 2 years. That's, to me, a much bigger story than Dak and Dallas losing a very competitive game. Like they were much more competitive against the 49ers than the Bills were against Cincinnati on their home field.
As the favorite. And that's the crazy part. Ask anyone listening right now or in the chat, who's a better quarterback, Josh Allen or Dak Prescott? Everyone will say Josh Allen. So why isn't Josh Allen getting the same criticism that Dak Prescott is getting for playing probably, in my opinion, just as worse of a game? So, and then another aspect that is kind of crazy, in my opinion, is, the Buffalo Bills the same round as the Dallas Cowboys. So it's just kind of all, to me, hypocritical, because the Bills have a better quarterback. They went out in the offseason and made moves to be a team that wanted to make it to the next step and go to the Super Bowl, yet they lost worse on their home field than the Cowboys did. But
yeah,
that's
like Brent says CD played the slot.
He played all year. He's a slot. He's basically a slot receiver. That's what he's the best.
Right.
Coming out.
And what I meant is like that pure slot type guy where you can move CD to the outside. I guess that's kind of what I'm talking about.
Michael Campbell is being a guy that I just had to deal with all the week so far.
Well, and again, I'm not making excuses for Dak. Dak is the thing that's got to get fixed if they
I
want to
was
be a
talking at the
true.
one at the bottom too.
Well,
Lost to Mr. Irrelevant. Yeah, but the 49ers have the best roster and the best probably overall one of the best overall coaches. Anyone that steps in and plays quarterback in that system is going to be good.
and defense. Let's not
Right,
forget
and
the
they have the
defense.
best they have the best
And
overall
Buffalo's,
roster. So it didn't come down to was Dak better than Brock. Brock just had to do enough with the game plan that was given to him. And so I don't think that that's an apples to apples comparison. And that's another point that I've been trying to dispute this week. I have the worst friends. I have the worst group chats that I'm in because there's nothing better than everyone pooping on a Cowboys fan parade after a loss.
Okay, last question tonight. Was Dalton Schultz's play on the Cowboys' last drive when he didn't get the foot down worse than Dak's scramble at the end of last year's loss to the 49ers?
Yeah, I do think so because I think both plays were worse. The fact that he didn't.
No, you got to tell one's got to be worse than the other.
No, I'm talking
Two
about
cannot be worse. One by definition has to be worse than the other, or they're equal.
I'm saying that both of Dalton's plays, back-to-back plays.
Oh, I got you.
The one where he didn't get.
Look, you and I have no love for Dalton Schultz. No love for Dalton Schultz. So again, bring me Michael Mayer, baby. I'm just like, I'm going to rub my sticks together for the next 3 months. Bring me Michael Mayer to Dallas. Get Dalton Schultz.
I've seen some mocks where he's been down there. But yeah, I mean, it's Dalton Schultz. One needs to know, dude, you got all that space. Get both feet in. And two, he knows he needs to get forward progression going out of bounds. Those are two just like, come on, plays.
And your boy Greg Olsen, who played tight end, is like, you got to muscle up a little bit. You gotta get yourself going forward.
The reason why
you've got to be going forward.
That's the reason why Schultz is worth this. He's not physical. He just wants to go out there and catch passes. He doesn't do anything in the run game.
Right.
He doesn't do anything to lower his shoulder. He just wants to be a pretty boy and line up and catch passes all day.
That's exactly it. Yeah, you're exactly right. And I had forgotten about the one where, he didn't get going forward and get out of bounds. But that's two plays on the final drive that just kill you. They absolutely, and then people want to bag on him for that last play with Zeke snapping the ball and stuff like that. It's like, it's going to be a desperation play. Did you really think
it was going to be a play that was going to score? Like, come on.
Right. Dalton, get your foot down. How hard is that? Because he was like, at least 3 or 4 yards from the sideline. You got to get that foot. You got to drag that foot. You got to get going forward. Both of them. Just inexcusable. And again, Dak has his share of the blame, and it is completely earned. And I said this last night when you weren't here, but, I disparaged Dak to you, in some texts, and I didn't hear from you afterwards on Sunday. I'm at my limit with Dak. And the point is, he's got a big contract. You're paying him all that money. He ain't going nowhere. They're not just going to get rid of Dak. So if you're not going to get rid of Dak, you've got to do something that makes him better. And it starts, quarterback coach is a simple solution, but offensive coordinator, a system, an actual system. Shanahan has a system, like I'd like the Eagles have a system. I would like to see a system. That's what I would go with if you're going to make Dak Prescott better.
Dak is not tradable. He doesn't have their best option is to actually kind of restructure his contract, sort of like what a Patrick Mahomes contract.
Yeah, no one's going to take on that money. That's
and you're not cutting them. The Cowboys
and that's part of the Cowboys' problem is the salary cap. Because of what they paid him and overpaying Zeke Elliott. I really want Zeke gone more than anybody, but I don't even know if that'll happen. I don't know. Jesse, we're going to go ahead and wrap it up on that. I promised that we would get all of the Cowboys grousing out of the way tonight.
There's no more Cowboys till next season. This is it. Right. This is the purge.
That's right. And, try to mix some other teams in there when we talk about it as well by point of comparison, but never going to please everybody.
Congratulations to all 49ers fans. You have an excellent team. It was a fun game to watch. Unfortunately, my team just didn't win in the end.
My Super Bowl pick is still intact. I've got the Niners and Bengals. They're both still playing this weekend, and should be hopefully a couple of great games. I don't know. We'll talk more about them on Friday when we do our Friday rapid fire going into the weekend. Jesse, great stuff as always. Everyone else, appreciate you being here tonight. Appreciate your thoughts for Henry, who's still chilling on that couch back there
He's
behind
sleepy.
Jesse and has not been yapping tonight. Hit the like button if you would on your way out. We've got the mailbag show coming up tomorrow. Vince and I will be here for that. So we will talk to you then on IB Nation Sports Talk.